Hi guys, this video is going to be about how foods bring consciousness, or what the frequency of the foods that you're eating are at, and how that affects you. So what I mean by that is everything that is in the universe, everything that you can imagine is made out of frequency. What frequencies those foods reside at that you're eating really determines how you are going to vibrate at. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, that's just going to be a basic understanding of how everything is made out of a frequency. What those foods are really going to do for you is, determining on what those foods are, you're going to either vibrate at a lower frequency if those foods contain lower frequencies within it, which an example of that would be dead foods, any meat, anything that is dead resides at a lower frequency. And it's just death consciousness is what it really is called. And it's not good to have those kind of foods within your system. And if you think about it, that's not really something that you want to put into your body, because if you're eating death, such as animals, like any animal at all, like cows, pigs, chickens, fish, anything like that. And also fish is not really a good source of food, but a lot of them have mercury within their system also, which is the most toxic metal on the planet. So putting those kind of things into your body is really going to determine how your health is. Foods like GMO foods, anything that is genetically modified, modified cornstarch, which is just basically corn. Corn is not a good resource. And even if it weren't genetically modified, it's not a good source of food, because it's not highly nutritious or anything like that. And nutrition has a lot to speak with the frequency of the foods too. That takes a huge part of what frequency those foods reside at. The difference between animal products and plant products is you're not going to get a lot of nutrition out of the animal products, because it's not really a great source, and what I believe is not what we are intended to eat. Cows are so densely condensed onto the farms that we harvest these cows at, that they live in shit for their entire life, up to their knees. Think about how much disease and how much bacteria is within those foods. So, and on the frequency level, they're living in hell on earth. That's where they're residing at. Those cows are not happy. So by the time we go ahead and we butcher them, we have to put so many chemicals and so many probiotics within those animals that we're eating in order to keep them healthy. But if you think about it, that we're eating everything that cow has had. By the time we butcher the cow, we're eating all of those negative things that cow has lived through all of the shots and all the medicines that it has taken, all the hormones also. There's a lot that cow has been through that we are taking in. And also, by the time we kill it, you have that death frequency also, that death consciousness along with it, on top of everything that it has lived through. So that's a lot to take in for one animal that we are eating, and that's what we're putting into our body. That's why foods like that are bad for us, because on the frequency level, it's insanely horrible for us, and it's not a good source of food that we can take in. And then by the time we have ate that, like, that's not a good source of food for us, because it's not nutritionally dense, it's not residing at a higher frequency, it's residing on a very, very low frequency, and then we're feeling ourselves on that, and it's not even helping us. A good example is that over at my job, I ordered 20 wings, which was a bad decision. It was really good food, but by the time I had all those wings within my stomach, by the way, I ate all that while sitting, and I ate all that in one sitting. And I couldn't feel the frequency at which that was residing at. I know that sounds weird, but I'm really sensitive to those kind of things. And also I'm really sensitive to people around me and how they act and what frequency they're residing at. It really determines how I act. And a good example of this would be Tony Robbins, his experience, his investigation on how other people's frequencies really affect and determine your reality. And I'll provide a link up for a video on that in the description. So by the end of the night, after I ate those wings, I was really depressed, honestly, and I felt like a need to get hit by a car. So it's so insane how what foods we put into our bodies really determine our thinking and what frequency we're residing at. So a lot of the time, you're not going to get that with plant-based foods or anything like that, because you're not going to get that lower frequency from plant-based foods, because it's not a living thing that is able to, well, it doesn't have consciousness along with it, with those plant-based foods. Although some people might consider that actually plants do have a little bit of consciousness if you think about it, like for trees and whatnot. But I don't think that's necessarily a story with actual plant-based foods. So the frequency at which these plant-based foods reside at is going to be a higher frequency, because it's what was, I believe, those foods are what God intended us to actually eat. And it's really important that we actually eat those foods, which is the example of how low of a frequency those animal-based foods are, and how it could really determine our thinking and what frequency we're residing at. So, but from what I know, the plant-based foods that we are eating and taking in are going to be a lot more beneficial for us, because it is residing at a higher frequency. And a lot of the time, those foods have a more highly nutritious base value from those foods. And a lot of the time, those foods have a higher nutritional value than any other food on the planet. A good example of that would be superfoods, like if you eat kale or if you eat anything like dates. Anything like that is going to be a lot more nutritional for us, and from what I know, there's a lot more frequency attached with those highly nutritious foods too. So a great example of that would be juicing fruits and vegetables, doing your own natural smoothies and stuff like that. Those plant-based foods are highly nutritious for us, and it's just going to have a higher frequency with it, and all that nutrition that we're taking in from those plants are like a lot more better for us. So if you look at what a heirloom tomato is, it is the original tomato that hasn't been tampered with by genetically modifying that organism. What they did is, what scientists have done, is they genetically spliced the gene in the tomato and inserted a deep sea fish gene into the tomato. The deep sea fish was able to reside in very, very cold temperatures without it dying. So they spliced that gene from that fish and they put it within that tomato. And the reason why they did that is because the tomato wasn't lasting through the crops during the winter time. It's tampered with, and I believe it's just not what God has intended us to eat. And a lot of the time with genetically modified foods, there is a lot of preservatives within those foods too. natural foods also are not meant to be preserved. Depending on what it is, like they only last a certain amount of time in your fridge for those plant-based foods, because it's meant to be living foods to eat. I tried eating vegan for a month, and I felt amazing. I was residing on an entire different level. I was able to function, and my chemical imbalances went away because I was focusing on it, which I was drinking kombucha tea, eating a lot of turmeric, having really healthy alkaline water with a high pH with it. By the way, it was spring water too, natural spring water, and I felt out of this world. I felt really amazing, and it's just such an amazing feeling having that within, having that frequency with you. And then by the time it was over, I ended up having to just eat regular foods and eat GMO foods. And then I realized after eating noodles, it literally just, I could feel the frequency at which it was residing at, and it wasn't helping me in any way. I could tell what it was affecting, how it was making me sick, how it was affecting my chemical imbalances. So that's just a good example of what that could do to you. So that's what this video is intended for, and that's basically it. Alright, thank you for watching, guys.